The dog days of summer may be winding down,
Look, you're ready to run.
but you wouldn't be able to tell that here at Batavia Downs. On the track during 9 heats, 59 dachshunds, all vying for one title, the fastest wiener in the region. There's only one rule.
They're supposed to be purebred dogs. You know, we want to make sure that they are dachshunds. Sometimes you have a dachshund beagle mix or a dachshund whatever mix, and the dog is hulking. It's looking so much bigger than the other dogs. Obviously, that's not going to play here. We got to make sure all the dogs are equal, you know, for racing today.
All come with varying levels of experience.
Pablo's been racing since he was a puppy. He's a rescue, and we raced him for rescue groups back in Atlanta. And when we moved back here, we just kept doing it.
And some with different strategies.
Just hopefully get him to run in a straight line. We obviously had no formal training.
I just wiggle that giggle ball, that noise gets in his head, and then it's just, he goes.
Even so, when the owner lets them loose, you never really know what to expect.
We have a nice fountain out on the track, and actually a couple years ago, one of the dogs made it past his owner through the hedges, and I had to run after it. Now, it didn't get too close to the pond. I mean, it was just by the hedges we have there. But I grabbed it. I almost slipped in and fell on my butt, and it was pretty funny to see, especially because you saw we had thousands of people here today to watch the races.
But at the end of Sunday's races, it seems it was 8-year-old Pablo who couldn't be stopped.
He's always placed, but he was a sabotager. Instead of going straight, he'd veer into other dogs and do stuff like that. So he's gotten second and third, and this is his first win.
And even for those who didn't quite come out on top,
He finished second in his group. He lost to last year's winner, Piglet. So we're very happy. He's quite the athlete.
it was still a dashing time had by all.
I think this will be definitely a yearly tradition for the Conant family.
In Batavia, Tara Grimes, Time Warner Cable News.
I'm not going to shoot anybody. I'm going to speak to you. I'm going to use my words. I'm going to articulate myself because the message needs to be heard. The message is important.
This video of Rochester resident Sapphire Williams gained national attention nearly 2 weeks ago. And the 22-year-old says it's still impacting her life. Williams was speaking with Time Warner Cable News and other reporters when she was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct.
Oh my God, oh my God.
Williams says she happened upon the protest after she and friends had planned to go get drinks and found the bars in the East End closed. She says it bothered her to see the large presence of officers in riot gear compared to the number of people in the crowd, and that's when she decided to speak up.
There's so many cops out here, but zero answers. Zero answers.
It's always been excessive and unnecessary to treat people, you know, in a intimidating way to, you know, suppress their rights and treat them as inferior simply because you've been removed or, you know, displaced from them in their way of life for so long.
Growing up in Henrietta, the University at Albany graduate says she's never had a negative experience with police. However, she calls her night in jail sobering and believes police brutality in this nation is prevalent.
And because I wasn't constantly surrounded by firsthand seeing people of African descent being subject to this cruel and unjust way of the police behaving. So it took me by surprise completely.
But Williams also says she doesn't feel police are at the core of the racial issues in America. She feels it happens in many aspects of society and wants people to educate themselves on how to prevent it.
It's absolutely not just the police. The police, this is happening because so many sectors of community is condoning and enabling this kind of behavior. Educate yourself on the systemic racist prejudice practices that occur, that have occurred. Educate yourself on the repetitive nature of police brutality and injustice in the legal system.
We asked Rochester Police Chief Michael Simonelli if he has seen the video, and he says he believes he has, but can't comment on a pending case. However, he says he is very open to speaking with those who want to protest and notes his department spoke to some of those involved after the July 8th protest.
We're taking some steps that to try to communicate and again to allow people to try to balance, make this very difficult balance between public safety, public disruption, and people having, you know, an opportunity to express their views on a very, very important public topic.
And through it all, Williams says she does have hope it will all get better, but she says it will just take time.
You won't change every mind, you won't change every heart. but ultimately, as long as people are acting in patient and communicative ways with each other, I think there's hope.
In Rochester, Tara Grimes, Time Warner Cable News.
It's something that not a day goes by you don't think about it.
For 7 years, Brittany Drexel's friends relentlessly prayed.
Talk about it all the time. You just pray, and it's something that connects all of us.
For 7 years, they kept the faith she was still alive.
You have to hold out for hope, no matter what. It was the only way to get through these last 7 years.
But on Wednesday, that all came to an end as the FBI announced they believe Drexel had been held against her will and killed after vanishing in 2009.
I knew they were going to tell us something big, but I didn't expect it to be that.
For Drexel's good friend and longtime soccer teammate Katiana Rosine, the news comes as a shock. Drexel's outgoing personality and smile is still so clear in her mind.
She was such a spitfire, on the field, off the field. She was this little thing who had no idea that she was this tiny thing. She thought she was like a giant, and just full of life and love and energy.
Dave Valtry coached Drexel from the time she was 11 until she disappeared. He calls the team one big family and can still see her zipping across the field.
There was one play, I remember, she lost a barrette in her hair, and she was dribbling the ball, and she bent down, picked up the barrette as she was dribbling, put it back in her hair, and she scored a goal. So it was pretty cool.
But they say Wednesday's news doesn't bring them complete closure.
You want closure, but you want to know why this happened. It's one thing to say that the girl's gone, but you want to know why is she gone? How did it happen? So I think that's probably the biggest thing that everybody's thinking about, especially, Brittany's family.
There's pieces that are definitely missing in this story. So I don't think until we're able to physically bring her home and kind of put this to rest that we'll ever feel okay.
And while they still wait for more news to come, they plan to continue leaning on each other, remembering she will always be alive in their hearts. Tara Grimes, Time Warner Cable News.
This is for service before the war.
On 93-year-old Bert Filardo's bedroom wall is a look back at his 5.5 years in the Navy.
This is the Pearl Harbor that I'm more proud of than any of them.
But it's December 7th, 1941, just 3 days after a ship, the USS Castor, arrived in Pearl Harbor, and about 1 year after he joined the military, that is seared permanently in his memory.
I look back on it now on a day like this, the anniversary of it, it comes back to me. It's just like it was yesterday.
As a signalman and 18 years old, Filardo says that Sunday started like any other. He was grabbing coffee with his fellow comrades. But he says 5 minutes to 8, their worlds were flipped upside down.
We heard these loud explosions over at Fort Island. That's the Naval Air Base in the middle of the island. And we looked out the door, and there was a smoke.
Quickly after, Filardo says they saw the planes dropping bombs and machine gunning them. While another signalman went to uncover their machine gun, Filardo ran to wake up his captain.
I said, "Captain, we're being attacked." And he said, "By who?" And I said, "I don't know, but I can see the emblems on the wings of the plane, and I think they're Japs." Just about 10 machine gun bullets came flying through the cabin.
For 2 hours, Filardo says the battle lasted. He says the planes came very close to the ships, firing their torpedoes and machine guns. At one point, he remembers looking up and clearly seeing the enemy.
He was in an open cockpit on the rear, and he smiled at me, and a big Japanese grin. And then he swung the machine gun around and he started firing, and he was that close to me. I don't know how he missed it.
And in many ways, Filardo considers himself lucky. His ship was carrying 700 tons of ammunition, yet survived the attack. But he thinks back to all the lives that were lost, including the 200 Marines his ship had just transported to Wake Island in the days before.
And it makes a different man out of you. You're glad that you're alive. You make every day count for one thing. but on the other hand, it makes you afraid that it will happen again.
And he hopes his story, even 75 years later, will continue to be told years after he's gone so that history will remain just that, a piece of the past on his wall of memories. In Geneseo, Tara Grimes, Time Warner Cable News.
It literally was like holding like a pipe bomb in your hand and just watching it go off. It was terrifying.
17-year-old Ryan Sholin has been using e-cigarettes for more than a year now. So when one exploded in his face Tuesday night, he says he never saw it coming.
I saw the like big flash of light as it happened, and then I could just feel like in my throat like a real hot, like metallic-y, like almost if you go to like a fire and like you inhale the smoke, it just felt like that.
Sholin was taken to the hospital for shrapnel cuts and burns to his left hand, throat, and lip.
If you look at this, you see where the battery's been kind of compromised here.
On Wednesday, Ogden Police Chief Christopher Muir showed us what remained of the $350 device.
This is the battery for the e-cig, and apparently as it was sitting inside, the very end of it became heated very quickly and it exploded. You can see here where the jagged edge is, and it became separated. The battery became separated from the e-cig, and several pieces of metal came off the end of the e-cig.
Just as Mears and Sholin suspect, the owner of the vape shop in Greece, Greg Ballman, believes a faulty battery may be to blame.
It is a very primitive and outdated type of vaping. Newer devices made in the past year, 99% of the devices are regulated, and they have controlled chips in them that won't allow the batteries to overcharge, undercharge, or explode in this instance. The primitive style of vaping that was being used, it has no protective chip in it, so that way when something goes wrong, it just goes wrong.
Bowman says it's also important to make sure the device you're buying isn't made of inexpensive material, the charger's made exactly for e-cigarettes, and most importantly, he says, educate yourself on how the device works before using it.
Anything that is used without the proper education can be dangerous.
And while Sholin says he did spend time researching devices, this experience shook him enough that he says he will be staying away from vaping for quite some time, if not forever. In Ogden, Tara Grimes, Time Warner Cable News. Inside the Hudson Avenue Walmart, 35-year-old Christy Brooks brought joy to her friends and coworkers for a decade, especially during the holidays.
She actually would make all the associates little crochet stockings, and she would put candies in them, and she would bake sugar cookies.
But now, 1 month after she and her 18-year-old daughter's deaths, this time it was her coworkers wrapping dozens of gifts for Brooks' 7 remaining children, ages 6 to 16. This all comes after weeks worth of gathering them from coworkers, customers, and others in the community. And once the wrapping was done, the carts were full. Presents wheeled outside and put into their cars, it was time to make the delivery. With help from Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, and his elf, this was a moment the children's grandmother says they've been waiting for.
They're so excited for Christmas, you know, they are. And they're so happy to get anything. That's the gratitude that my daughter taught them, is you're grateful for what you get. You know, and you heard them say, thank you to Santa Claus. It's like, yeah, what did you say? Everybody, thank you, they knew. You know, they've been raised that way, to be polite and have manners.
And as they sang songs,
you would even say it,
took pictures with Santa, and opened just a few presents, leaving the rest for Christmas Day, Sampler says it was hard to hold back the tears.
Just to be able to see 7 kids just smile and just say thank you, and just opening presents and ripping the wrapping paper, that just meant everything to me.
And although Chapman says the children have been resilient since their mother and sister's deaths, this occasion still provided them with bountiful joy in a trying time.
It's going to be an amazing Christmas. It doesn't change the fact that my daughter's gone, but we have joys this season.
In Rochester, Tara Grimes, Time Warner Cable News.